There's no doubt that the Death Stranding IP has a very complex world and story. So in preparation for the analysis of DS2 trailers 1 and 2, I spent a week replaying the first game to try and understand everything I could about it. Now that portion is done, I'm ready to share with you everything I observed in the two videos. Just a heads up that I'm assuming you've already finished the first game, so there will be spoilers in this presentation. Okay, let's do this. The biggest puzzle that ran through my mind is with regards to the current state of their world. If you remember the ending of DS, you'll notice that Timefall rain disappeared, paired with a normal upwards arching rainbow seen in the foreground. This shot brought up a series of questions that left me perplexed because we know for a fact that Timefall is connected to the density of chiralium levels in an area. So, if that type of rain is gone, does that mean chiralium particles have also disappeared? If they're no longer present, does that mean chiral clouds are also no more, allowing people to fly once again and use radio communications? Currently, I have no information that would explain this scene, but what I can tell you is that for DS2, this environmental hazard is back. First off, we have visual confirmation of an inverted rainbow in the horizon of this shot, indicating the presence of Timefall. We can also see Sam carrying the same type of chiral crystal container we've utilized in the first game. As far as I can tell, chiral crystals, Timefall, along with the beach, all materialized from the same event, so one cannot exist without the others. This means that their global situation stayed the same to how it was from the first game, minus the last stranding, aka Doomsday at an accelerated pace. Obviously, the chiral network is still around, so all of its downsides, like the aforementioned Timefall, will most likely come with the package. When people fail to burn the bodies of their deceased, they will still turn to BTs, except now with glowing eyes. And any unfortunate porter who gets caught by them will still have to face those giant creatures emerging from tar. Speaking of which, based on what was shown in trailer 2, I think we'll get to know more about this mysterious substance in DS2. According to one email from the Evo-Devo biologist, this kind of tar contains D-amino acids, which is what the characters in this shot were talking about.
That chrysalis, we found her inside. It was filled with a fluid that contained amino acids. One's identical in structure to the kind found in tar.
I'm sorry, there are amino acids in tar? As in proteins?
Of course. How else did you think that chiral creatures could emerge from it?
I'm not a chemist, so I can only go by what was written in the email, that these acids are rarely found on living organisms on Earth, and may also give rise to life comprised of that protein, which seems to be a correct assessment, given the presence of what George Miller's character calls chiral creatures. You see, there's one interview from Hartman titled "BTs Come in All Shapes and Sizes" that talks about the jellyfish-like creatures which are visible to everyone, even to those who don't have dooms. He posits that they might not be BTs, or may belong to their subspecies, but he's not yet certain. From my own assessment, I think these black flying entities, as well as the captain's cat-like pet, are examples of the so-called chiral creatures. There's more to talk about surrounding this subtopic, but for now, one key takeaway from trailer 2 is that black liquids are being emphasized in the story, and there seems to be three types of them. First is the tar, which we got introduced to in the first game. Next is a black liquid that spilled from within the chrysalis, which contains very similar properties to tar. And the most puzzling of all is the one that shoots out from a needle on Elle Fanning's character, which can accelerate time. It's too early to say at this point, but I suspect all three are related to one another. And it's very interesting that their application can be found all over the trailer. Apart from the DHV Magellan that uses tar to travel from one place to another, there's also a form of black liquid which seems to be a key component to Higgs's resurrection. In this shot, we get a close look at his coffin, and we can clearly see something oozing out from the seams. I was able to confirm that his container was indeed filled with it, because in a later shot where he stands up, we can see the concrete surrounding him is drenched with the same substance. Is this revival technology an artificial version of the chrysalis? Before we move on to the next topic, it's a good idea to give a quick recap about what happened to Fragile and her company leading up to what we know so far. At the ending of the first game, we know that Fragile Express became the first licensed logistics company within the UCA. But thanks to the chiral network, deliveries are now assigned to bots, courtesy of something called APAS.
With the support of the chiral network and APAS, humanity will be free from the need to move around. Bots are capable of handling deliveries.
So she decided to close down FE and put together Drawbridge, a private company that shares a similar function to what Bridges did, except operating on an international level. According to her, she doesn't know the identity of their financer who have access to a lot of resources. In addition, Mr. Kojima also said in a recent Hideo tube that she's not even aware of who designed the Magellan, and the UCA cannot be involved in any way, otherwise their actions would be seen as an invasion. So my best guesses with regards to this mystery are one of two possibilities. First, it could be one of her late father's associates. Remember that Fragile Express was not a sole proprietary, but rather a startup by him along with a couple of friends, according to this interview. However, the other more likely candidate, keeping in mind the law of simplicity, could be someone high up in APAS, because they're the only one we know so far who stands to benefit from connecting other continents to the chiral network. If I had to choose between the two, I'd say this is a lot more probable.
It wasn't the UCA that made the final decision. It was APAC, a private corporation.
According to Mr. Kojima, DS2 happened not long after the first game. But regardless, I think the incident seen in Trailer 1 happened after Fragile shut down FE, but before she established Drawbridge. That's why she found the time to babysit Lou. I suspect that Sam isolated himself from everyone for a very long time after Lou turned into a BT bound to the BB pod and was only coaxed back into action by Fragile with a new mission in life much later. So, just like in the first game, he'll get to save a lot of people by connecting everyone to the chiral network and find answers about his personal matters along the way. There's no mistaking that the attack happened within Sam's shelter, and I was able to verify this by cross-referencing the rock face just outside it, from when the attack happened and after Fragile invited him to join Drawbridge. As you can see from their similar features, it's the same location. As for Lou's demise, there's still a bit of room for doubt to what actually happened because of the hard transition from when Fragile started rolling on the ground and when the mystery character fired their gun. However, the environment color seems to match each other very closely. I just can't figure out how Lou was 20 feet away from Fragile in the next shot when the baby was secured on a sling in the previous one, with her arms wrapped around her. It doesn't make sense. Anyway, assuming that this character indeed killed Lou, the primary suspect is definitely Higgs, and the way I was able to identify this assailant is through their gloves. If we look at these two shots, we can see that their design is a perfect match, from the red fork on the fingers, as well as the reflective gilded stripes around their wrist. And yes, this design is very unique to his character because his followers can be seen on these shots sporting a more simplistic apparel. But I think the most fascinating possibility that I have for you today is the identity of Higgs's new crew. You see, one of the earliest questions that I had about him from Trailer 1 is the reason behind why he's wearing a kipu similar to the ones worn by the Bridges team. And after watching both trailers several times, I noticed something peculiar. The kipu, the red-colored motif, Higgs's hairstyle, and the mask all point towards Amelie. So my hypothesis, based from all those factors put together, leads me to assume that this group is a militant cult centered around Amelie, with Higgs acting as their leader. These are my latest findings for the DS2 trailers, at least those ones where I have answers and informed guesses for. They're still filled with many more questions, so if I figure some of them out, I'll make sure to do a follow-up video.